"It will be better when you leave," my dad said in all seriousness, after I drove 8 hours to my mom's to wish her a happy birthday. Then my mom shouted from kitchen, "What do you not understand? I want to see only real family members today, not you." I smiled. After 30 minutes, everything quickly changed, and they begged me to listen them, but 8 hours in the car gives you plenty of time to think. I had no music on, just the sound of the road and the occasional hum of my old Civic, reminding me that it wasn't made for long drives anymore. The whole way down, I was running through all the things I'd say when I walked through the door. It was Mom's birthday, after all. I imagine how surprised she'd be, how proud they'd feel seeing me show up like that. I didn't even tell them I was coming. I thought it would mean something. I was driving to Charleston, South Carolina. That's where they moved a few years ago, after Dad retired early. Quiet neighborhood, big backyard. Nadine always said it was the perfect family house, like she had something to prove. I hadn't been there in over a year, not since everything started getting weird between us. It had been a rough year with my parents. Ever since my sister Nadine moved back in with them, things shifted. I could feel it in every call, every text they forgot to answer. I'd ask Dad something and get one-word replies. Ask Mom for a recipe, and she'd say she was busy. Meanwhile, Nadine was constantly on their Facebooks, posting photos of them with captions like, "Grateful to have real family around." I didn't think too much of it at first, but something was off. I parked a block away from the house because I didn't want them to hear me pull up. I was nervous, excited, hopeful, and already a little tired from the trip. When I rang the bell, I heard footsteps and muffled voices. Then the door opened and there was Dad. He looked like he didn't expect me at all, which made sense since I hadn't told him. But he also didn't look happy. He looked me over and just said, "It will be better when you leave." I thought he was joking. I even laughed and said, "What?" Then from inside, Mom's voice echoed out from the kitchen, loud and clear. "Don't you understand? I want to see only real family members today, not you." I stood there with a stupid smile frozen on my face. Not because I was okay, but because I genuinely couldn't believe they were serious. Before I could say anything, Dad stepped outside and shut the door behind him. Told me Nadine had told them everything. That I'd stolen money from her and tried to turn them against her, and that I was toxic and needed help. I couldn't even process what I was hearing. I hadn't seen Nadine in over a year. I hadn't touched your money. I didn't even know what he was talking about. I didn't argue. I just said, "If I'm not your family, then my money doesn't exist to you either. Good luck figuring out how to cover next semester for Nadine." Then I turned and walked back to my car. I was halfway down the street when I saw Dad in the rear view waving his arms. Then Mom. They were chasing the car. I pulled over, not because I was giving in, but because I was curious how fast they'd switch up. I rolled the window down, just a crack. They begged me to come back. Said I misunderstood. Said there was more to talk about. Said they'd made a mistake. And right in the middle of it all, while Dad was stammering about how it's complicated, Mom blurted something out about Nadine that stopped everything. It didn't make sense right away, but it was enough to make me stay and listen. I didn't say anything for a while. Dad kept talking, throwing out all these half apologies, but my focus was locked on Mom. She looked like she regretted saying something, but not in a guilty way. More like she slipped up and now had to cover it. That look made me stay. I told them I'd come inside, but I wasn't there to make peace. I was done with pretending. I just wanted to hear exactly what they thought I'd done straight from their mouths. Maybe I was hoping for something that made sense, but I already had this sinking feeling they'd say anything to protect Nadine. The kitchen looked the same, but the energy was different. Cold, like I wasn't standing in the house I grew up in, just some stranger passing through. The last time I'd been there, I left a birthday card on the counter for Mom with a $100 bill inside. She never mentioned it. Dad sat down heavily like he was bracing himself for something painful, but it was all just performance. He started talking about Nadine, said she'd been going through a lot, that she lost her job last fall, got dumped, and moved back in because she had nowhere else to go. I asked what that had to do with me. That's when Mom said they were just trying to support her and that they might have misunderstood a few things. I asked what kind of things. Dad started fumbling his words. He said Nadine told them I'd tried to turn the family against her last year, that I'd spread rumors, manipulated conversations, even stolen money from her account. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were sitting there actually repeating this garbage back to me like it had any weight. I asked them if they saw proof. They didn't answer. Mom said, Nadine's been through a lot. Why would she lie? Why would she lie? I laughed and asked them if they remembered that $10,000 I wired for house repairs. They both nodded slowly. I asked what those repairs were again. Silence. Then Dad finally said, She needed help with a car, Oliver. You know how hard things were for her. I leaned back. So the money I gave them had gone to Nadine, and not one word of thanks. Not even a call. Then it got weird. Mom mentioned something under her breath about Nadine losing that job because of what happened. I asked her what that meant. She said nothing. Then she said it was just something Nadine mentioned. Then she said maybe it wasn't about me directly. Each answer just made it worse. I asked if they seriously believed I got her fired. They looked away. That was enough of an answer. I was about to walk out when I heard the front door open. Footsteps. Nadine walked in with this guy behind her. Maybe late 20s, messy hair, kind of smug-looking. He had tattoos on his hands and a cigarette behind his ear. He stopped when he saw me, looked me up and down and said, Wait, this is the brother? The one you said got arrested? I turned to Nadine. Arrested? I've never even had a speeding ticket. She froze for a second. Just a second. That was all I needed to see. Her boyfriend looked back and forth between us, then back at her. Something shifted in his face, like he realized he'd walked into something way bigger than what he signed up for. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The look on Nadine's face was loud enough. It was like time cracked open right there in the doorway. Nadine froze. Her boyfriend stepped back and everyone just stood there in the thick, choking silence. I looked directly at him. She told you I got arrested? He nodded slowly, like he was just realizing how off that sounded. He looked at her and said, You said he was violent, that he got arrested for assaulting someone outside a bar. Nadine didn't answer right away. She tried to smile, but it was the kind people do when they're cornered, and still trying to fake control. I was exaggerating, she mumbled. I said, Funny, because I've never even had a parking ticket and I don't drink. His eyes narrowed. You said he almost hit you once, that your parents were scared of him. That one made me laugh. I looked at Mom and Dad. Did you two hear that one too? That I almost hit her? They didn't respond. Not yes, not no, just blank. Like they were watching a magician reveal every trick and still hoping for a rabbit to appear. Nadine's boyfriend didn't wait. He looked at her, shook his head, then turned and walked out the front door without saying another word. She chased after him, trying to explain, but I already knew how that would go. You can only keep someone in a fake story until the plot falls apart, and it had just fallen apart in front of everyone. I turned back to Mom and Dad. Either of them could look at me. I gave you 10 grand, I said, pulling out my phone and opening the app. I showed them the transaction. You told me it was for the roof, that you had a leak, that the insurance wasn't covering it. That's what you said. Mom whispered something, but I didn't hear it, didn't care to. That money bought Nadine a used BMW, I said. She bragged about it on Instagram a week later. I saw the post. You were both in it? Smiling next to her with a caption that said, Grateful for the people who've always believed in me. I was the one who paid for that picture. And you didn't even tag me. They sat down at the table like someone had knocked the air out of them. You said I wasn't real family today, I said slowly. So let's go with that. No more calls, no more money, no more rides when things break, no more favors. If I don't exist to you, then I won't exist to you. Dad tried to speak. I held up a hand, but I'm not done. I walked over to the drawer near the fridge, Still the same drawer where we used to keep flash drives, batteries, bills no one paid on time. I found it right where I thought it would be. An old backup hard drive. Nadine's. She used to plug it in whenever her laptop was full. She used to brag about how she never deleted anything, how she backed up her entire life. I held it up. You remember when she said I broke into her room and stole her laptop? I asked them. I didn't, but you never asked me if it was true. You just believed it. I slipped the drive into my pocket. Let's see how much truth she kept on here. That was the exact moment things turned. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to let her destroy herself with her own words, her own saved files, her own careless messages. And this time, they were going to watch it happen. I didn't go home. I drove to a Starbucks 10 minutes away, parked in the far corner of the lot, and pulled out my laptop. I hadn't touched the hard drive in years, but I knew Nadine. She didn't believe in deleting anything. She treated her files like receipts just in case someone ever questioned her version of a story. I plugged it in and waited. At first, it was the usual junk. Old essays, playlists, selfies, resume drafts. Then I found the folders. Not one but 5, all named after people. 3 were ex-boyfriends. 1 was a former roommate, and the last one was labeled Fam. I opened that one first. Inside were screenshots, dozens of them, lyrics of mine, but heavily edited, like actual Photoshop edits. She'd taken messages I'd sent and changed the words to make it look like I was threatening her, calling her names, saying I wanted to ruin her life. The timestamps didn't even make sense. Some of the messages were from dates when I wasn't even in the country. Then I found voice memos, all spliced together from old voicemails and audio clips to make it sound like I was yelling at her. But if you listen closely, it was choppy, unnatural. In one clip, my voice said, "You're nothing," then immediately cut to, "I've always hated you." But the tone was completely different between the two, like they were taken from different conversations years apart. She created false evidence. I sat back in my seat. I wasn't angry. I was impressed. The lengths she'd gone to just to build her story were insane. And for what? Compassion, attention, control. Then I opened the folder labeled with her most recent ex, and that's when it got dark. Screenshots of his private messages, bank statements, a document in which she'd written out a breakup plan, including steps to ruin his reputation if he ever left her. She even had a folder of photos of him at parties with notes like, "Use this if he tries to lie about drinking. This wasn't just about me. She did this to people. It was a pattern." I closed my laptop and just stared at the parking lot for a while. The sun was starting to set and the shadows stretched long and thin. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger, not vengeance, just clarity. If she wanted to play this game, fine. I'd play it better. First, I emailed some of the files to myself just in case. Then, I sent a message to a guy I hadn't talked to in years, Jake. Nadine's ex, the one she claimed had cheated on her and emotionally destroyed her. We'd never been close, but I remembered how quickly he'd disappeared after they broke up. Now I knew why. I sent him 3 files. He called me within 20 minutes. Said he didn't know whether to thank me or throw up. Said he still had a draft of a restraining order that his lawyer had written, just never filed. He said if this got out, Nadine wouldn't just lose her precious trust with our parents, she'd lose a lot more. That's when the plan came together. It wasn't going to be loud. It wasn't going to be explosive. It would be quiet, precise, and irreversible. And it was going to start at my mother's birthday dinner, because Nadine had no idea that Jake had just booked a flight, and he wasn't coming to talk. Mom's birthday dinner was supposed to be this quiet family thing. Just a small group at home, some decorations, takeout from her favorite seafood place and cake in the backyard. That was the plan, at least until I got involved. I called Dad and told him I'd be back for dinner. I said I didn't want to ruin Mom's day. He hesitated but agreed. I could hear the shame in his voice, the kind that comes when someone knows they're about to eat their words and have no idea how bitter they'll taste. What I didn't tell them was that I'd invited a few guests. Nadine was already at the house when I arrived. She didn't say anything. She just gave me this tight, passive smile like we were, two coworkers forced to share a table at a wedding. I smiled back. I hadn't slept much, but I didn't need sleep. I had momentum. We sat down to eat around 6. 0-0. I gave it 20 minutes. Let things feel normal. Everyone pretended. Then the doorbell rang. Jake walked in like he'd been invited 100 times before. No drama. Just calm, collected, and carrying a small black folder under one arm. Nadine's fork clattered against her plate. She whispered his name, then said louder, "Why are you here?" Jake ignored her. He looked directly at my parents and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Harris, thank you for having me. I know this is a little unexpected, but I thought it was time to clear some things up." Dad looked at me. I just nodded. Jake put the folder on the table and opened it. Inside were printout screenshots, the fake messages she made about me, the notes she'd written about him, a transcript of one of the audio files I'd cleaned up and enhanced. And then he spoke calmly, clearly, brutally. He told them how Nadine had manipulated him, how she made up threats to keep him from leaving, how she used things he told her in confidence to ruin his job when he broke it off, how she cried to my parents about being emotionally destroyed while planning to leak false stories to his boss. He laid it all out calmly. No shouting, just facts. Nadine tried to interrupt, said it was all out of context, that Jake was lying, that I was jealous that we'd ganged up on her. She said it with that desperation, trying to get sympathy the way she always did. But this time, it didn't work. Mom shook her head before Nadine had even finished. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years. Then I spoke, told them about the hard drive, the audio splicing, the doctored screenshots, the fake arrest story. Showed them the email I sent myself, the timestamp, the original files, her folder named FAM. Nadine's face fell. She stood up and started screaming about how hard her life had been, how no one understood the pressure she was under, how she just wanted attention because no one ever cared about her. It was wild watching someone try to explain away years of manipulation as if it were just a small mistake. Like maybe if she said the right combination of words, she could turn back time. Mom told her to sit down. Dad told her to shut up. She didn't. She kept talking. Said we'd all turned against her, that Jake had abandoned her, and that I was always the golden child, and that our parents only loved her when she played perfect. That's when Mom got up, told her to leave. Nadine didn't move. Said she had nowhere else to go. Jake said, "Figure it out like the rest of us had to." She looked at him one last time, and something snapped. The show was over. She grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the doors so hard that one of the picture frames fell off the wall. Nobody picked it up. We sat there for a long time. Nobody said much. The food was cold. The cake was never cut. But something about the silence felt better than all the fake conversations we'd been having for years. And that was just the beginning. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear from Nadine, and I didn't ask. Mom and Dad didn't mention her either. There was this unspoken agreement between us that whatever happened at that dinner was final, that everything before that belonged to a different timeline that we weren't going back to. Then a letter came. No return address. My name in that oddly familiar handwriting, rounded, neat, like it was trying to sound innocent before I even opened the envelope. It was from Nadine. A handwritten apology, though calling it an apology feels generous. She said she was leaving town for a while, said she needed space to think. She claimed to understand our reaction, but was hurt that we all turned on her so quickly. She ended the first page by saying, "I just wish someone had asked me how I was really doing." It was like watching someone dig their own grave with a spoon. But the second page was different. On the back, it listed 8 names. Some were familiar. Jake, Maddie, the guy from her college internship she accused of stalking her. Some I didn't recognize. At the bottom, she wrote, "These are the people I've wronged. Maybe now you'll believe me when I say I don't know how to stop. No drama, no excuse, just a confession written in the kind of cold, dry language that makes it worse." I took a picture of the list and sent it to Jake. He didn't even ask, just responded with, "Are you okay with me posting this?" I said yes. The next morning, it was all over Reddit. He blurred the names, but people started to figure it out. Threads connected the dots. One of the names turned out to be a girl who had quietly dropped out of her university after Nadine claimed she plagiarized an entire research paper. Another guy had been fired from his internship over harassment report that suddenly didn't make sense. And the name at the bottom of the list, that one hit like a grenade. Mark. I hadn't thought about him in years. Our old neighbor, a few years older than me. Quiet kid, helped Dad with the yard work sometimes. Walked our dog when we went on vacation. Then one summer, he just disappeared. Nadine had told Mom and Dad that he was spying on her through the bathroom window. They believed her without question. Mom cried. Dad called his parents. Things got ugly. No one ever saw him again after that. I didn't even know he had a life after that. But Dad found him. He was living in Atlanta, working at a small auto shop, still using a flip phone. He looked thinner, tired. Dad went to see him in person. When he came back, Dad didn't say much. He just said, "We ruined that boy's life." After that, everything changed. They updated their wills, cut Nadine out of everything. I didn't ask them to do that. It was their decision. They sold their car that same week and donated the money anonymously to a local support center, the same one that helped Maddie after Nadine lied about her and left her with back rent and a broken lease. Jake sent me a voicemail later that day. Just 4 words. "She's not coming back." But she tried one last time. She emailed me from a new address, said she was in Nevada, said she was starting over. Bet she'd found someone new who really saw her. Bet she hoped I could understand the pressure she was under. She asked if we could ever talk again, even just once. She said that no matter what happened, we were still family. I didn't respond. But I did send an email that week. Not to her, to everyone she'd hurt. The names on her list. I wrote a single message attaching every file, every screenshot, every audio recording. I told them if they ever needed anyone to vouch for what really happened, they could call me. One of them, the girl who got kicked out of college, wrote back a day later. She said, "Thank you. I thought I was crazy. Nadine doesn't exist in my world anymore. Not even as a ghost. Mom and Dad don't mention her name. Jake is seeing someone new. Maddie's back in school. Mark works full-time and moved to a better neighborhood. And me? I sleep through the night because justice didn't come in a storm. It came in whispers, in receipts, in the silent, undeniable weight of truth. And in the end, that was more than enough. Update 1. I thought it was over. I really did. After everything came out, the files, the dinner, the fallout, I assumed Nadine was gone for good. But people like her don't go away quietly. They wait, they watch, and then they try one last thing when they think you've let down your guard. About a month after I last heard from her, I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened in. It was Nadine. She didn't say much, just that she messed up, that she was in a bad place. And then she said something strange. "If things get worse, I'm sorry for what I might have to do." I repeated that last line 3 times. The next day, my bank flagged an unusual login attempt. Someone was trying to access my account from a device in Nevada. I used 2-factor authentication so they didn't get in. I changed all my passwords and locked everything down. 2 days later, my boss called me into his office. He said he had received an anonymous email with screenshots of concerning behavior, allegations that I had stolen money, harassed a family member, and been fired from a previous job. I'd never been fired. Fortunately, I had already told him the broad strokes of what had happened, so he didn't take it seriously. But the screenshots, they were the same ones she had forged about me last year. She still had them. She was still trying to use them. I contacted a lawyer. We traced the email to a burner account created in Reno, same day as the login attempt, same day as the voicemail. I didn't tell my parents, not at first. I thought if they knew she was still pulling this crap, it would just reopen everything. But the lawyer said something that stuck with me. She's not going to stop until somebody makes her. So I made a move she didn't see coming. I filed a police report. I included the attempted identity theft, the forged emails, and a digital trail linking the burner account to her previous devices. I submitted the hard drive as evidence. Even if nothing came of it legally, it was now documented. Real, permanently. But here's where it backfired for her. Apparently, Nadine's new boyfriend, the one she claimed really saw her, was using her laptop. He saw the police report through her email. Then he found the hard drive backups she never deleted. He dumped her, sent a statement to my lawyer, said he wanted no part of any of her psychotic lies, said she told him I was abusive, said she claimed she fled the family and that I was stalking her across state lines. She lost everything again. And I found out something else. The graduate student she falsely accused, she'd already filed a defamation suit before all this. After my update went viral, she amended the case with all the new evidence. Nadine was now facing civil charges. Real ones. So, yes, she tried one last trick. She tried to destroy my name again. But this time, I wasn't alone. And this time, she failed publicly, legally, completely. After that, I won't post anymore. There's nothing left to say except this. If someone in your family lies so well that they start to believe it themselves, believe you first because the truth is waiting. And when it comes, it'll be louder than all the lies put together.